Hi, this is Doug Howard, President of Growth Team Strategies, and here with another episode of Selling the Dream with my effervescent partner, Kathi Fleck, who brings all of her knowledge, energy, and just a little bit of sarcasm to each episode, which we appreciate, right? And we have our guest today, which we're really excited about, uh, Rick Baker, with a company called Stately Design and Renovation in Texas, remodeling company, and who has put a lot of effort, a lot of thought into succession planning, laid out a good long-term plan, way out ahead of the curve where we love to see people. I've got the chance to work with him in some of the roundtables things that we facilitated and just even got to do a case study at his business one time a while back. And Rick's a great guy. So Rick, we're super excited to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. I also speak sarcasm, so it'll be great.
Yeah.
That's why we don't get along so well.
It is one of my favorite states, but anytime I find myself in a three-person situation, two of which come from Texas, I always know that I'm at a slight disadvantage. So
That's
it's okay.
correct. You're at a big disadvantage.
But I'm also fairly arrogant. I get that Northeast, so I don't know how much of a disadvantage I'm at. So that works in my favor.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk with you guys.
Sure. So, Kathi, you initiated the idea of having Rick on, which I thought was great. Why'd you want him here? What most do you think was relevant to what we're doing?
Well, as you know, I'm really involved with succession planning, and I love to hear people's stories about what they're doing. Now, for me, when I exited my business, I had a different approach. I wasn't able to do what Rick's planning to do. And so I really like to hear other people's stories about what they're doing. I think it gives the listener another idea of something that they might be able to pursue and just where the successes come from.
Sure. So, Rick, give us a little background. How'd you get started in the business? How long have you been in it? What drove you in this direction?
So I've been in business. It'll be 18 years in January. We're in a real fluid area, and we do. We're a boutique remodeling company focused on full house renovations, additions, and second story add-ons is our 30-second elevator pitch. And I got started because we had a window covering company, a franchise, and I was at a sale one day, and there was a lady there selling carpet, and my sale was $3,000, hers was $30,000. I thought I'd rather sell $30,000 than $3,000, so I started looking to get into remodeling, really as a way to get more blind business. And my first two jobs in remodeling were over $100,000. One of them was still, to this day, the most complicated second story addition I've ever done. It's my very first job. So my remodeling company took off that first year, and then we've just never looked back from there.
Nice. And
Our company, I ran it by myself for about 7 years. And then now there's four of us. We're subcontractor based. And so I've worn literally every hat in the company. And I have a two-man production crew, and then I have an administrative help, and then me.
Nice. Fantastic. So when did you first start thinking about succession? How did you first start thinking about it? Because, like I was saying, compared to a lot of the folks we talk to or, put information out to, you're way out ahead of the curve.
Yeah. About 2 years ago, I went to a seminar. I had no idea what it was going to be about. It was all day long. And I thought I'll either leave in 30 minutes because it's no good, or this will be really interesting. Well, it turned out to be really interesting. And it was about, it was a business broker company, and they had a presentation about selling your business. It was all small business people from like 25 million down to whatever. And there were about 15 or 20 of us in the room. And they talked a lot about, how many of you are going to sell to family members, and a bunch raise your hand. How many are going to sell to employees, and a bunch raise your hand. And they spent like an hour telling us why those two things never work. And so I decided that I was not going to sell to my employees. I don't have a family member interested. But as I started looking at what my options were and the timing of it, they talked a whole lot about timing, that, there's these financial roller coaster and hills and valleys in our economy, and that you want to be sure that you're selling when you're on the uphill side so that you peak and sell at the peak instead of at the bottom. And they talked about the timing of those things. So in doing that, I began to start exploring, what I wanted to do. And, I've, like all of us, I've worked so hard to build this company. It's this little precious thing that I've crafted over all these 18 years, and I wanted to survive. And I have a team member that's been with me for 11 years now. And so I started thinking about ways that I could, number one, enrich his life, and then number two, do something that will let the company sustain. So I'm doing we started out as an 8-year plan to do the transition. And really, I think the most important thing is to start with personally, what is it I'm going to need in retirement?
Mm-hmm. So how did you go about that? Did you have like a personal financial planner? Was it more of you guys brainstorming what some of your goals were? Because we love, matter of fact, in a couple of weeks, we're going to have a financial planner that I've worked with for years coming on talking about just sort of how do you get people even thinking about that, right? And it seems like people are more aware of the idea of thinking about retirement, at a younger age than maybe they were 15, 20 years ago. They put some value on that. But when you get to sort of the business side, sometimes you don't really even realize that this is going to be one of the biggest assets people have potentially.
Yeah, try it. So for me, I did not use a financial planner. I talked to somebody. I think it was the best route for me because I'm a different thinker. So unconventional, I guess. So what I did was I sat down and I looked at our personal budget, what we're spending, and then I thought that the first few years of retirement, we're going to want to live the same life that we have now. We're going to want to travel and do the same things, and probably our expenses won't go down; they might even go up a little bit. So what I did is I made a 20-year plan of what I estimated that we would spend each year, and it's a decreasing amount because as we grow older, we spend less money. My house will be paid off in about 4.5 years, so that was a bump for us. And I looked at all those things and put all that down on paper and spent a lot of time, trying to figure out when I thought that our financial needs would decrease. And then I made a list of those and added up and came up with a number. Said, okay, there's my number that I want for retirement. And then how do I get there?
Gotcha.
I think that's the most important step, by the way, is figuring out being realistic is what you're going to need and what you're going to want in retirement.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, and to hear the way you're describing it, when you say we, you're talking about getting together with you and your wife, looking at goals, that kind of thing.
Yeah, my wife Janet and I.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We had someone in a very different vein the other day tell us he was working on his 5-year goals for his business, and he's not married yet, but he sat down with his girlfriend to go through his goals, and he had on his goals to propose to her and to get married, but he hadn't told her quite yet. And so this was the way she found out going through her goals. So, everybody getting on the same page can be a really good thing, It
is important.
It was so we're taking credit for that one. We're saying we had a hand in that. So you start to look at it, and then of course some things are unknown, right? How we're gonna feel, like what's the economy going to be doing. One of the things that I find people when we talk to people, they have this sense of it's like succession planning is something I should be doing, but they kind of get a couple of steps down the road and they're like, well, I don't know if the kids are going to want the business, or I don't know if maybe this key person's going to be with me, or I really can't tell for sure. And they keep getting stuck, right? They keep stopping along the way. So how did that work for you? Because I always tell people, like, to me, it's like an equation with too many variables, right? It's like, I knew this, I knew that, right?
There are a lot of variables, that's for sure. I think it's Venice that wrote the statement that vision is a picture of the future that produces passion. So what I wanted to do with the team members that I wanted to include in this cell was I wanted to build a vision for them that was going to have them passionate about working this plan with me so that they get to the point they need to be, and that we'll do that. So I've dangled a carrot, honestly, showed them how much money they can make, how much they'll make during the interim, and then how much they'll be able to make when they own it by themselves. And so I did that to get them to get the buy-in. And honestly, I had to make a big adjustment to my plan recently. I had 2 people that I thought were going to do it. One was going to be administrative, one would be production, and the administrative person ended up changing and going a different direction, it ended up good because I had not seen them invest the same amount of interest as a production guy and learned how to run the business. And that was very telling for me. This person had an accounting background, very conservative, as you probably know. And so this whole entrepreneur thing was a question mark for them. So it ended up being good that ended up, her moving on, that ended up working out good.
Yeah.
Another big change that's been huge for my company is that as my production manager has gotten excited about this, it has changed his whole way of working for the business. He now does what all of us want our employees to do, is to think like a business owner. And That's so wonderful. He is running his jobs much less slippage, much more paying attention to the schedule. All the things that I've wanted out of him for 10 years, he's finally doing, and we're much more profitable now because of it. That's been a
Nice.
huge blessing.
Yeah.
That is
No,
that is
that's
really
fantastic.
huge.
Yeah.
I think it's difficult to get employees, even management, to think as an owner, and that is a huge accomplishment to get them to think like an owner. And I like the idea of you showing him what he could make. I know your production manager has a lot of personal responsibility and a lot of business responsibility, and is the breadwinner of the home, and so he's got a lot on his shoulders. And I think this is a huge opening for him, an
Yeah,
opportunity.
one of the great things about being a small business, and my thinking changed about this a few years ago, is that we worked so hard to build this thing up for ourselves. But a few years ago, I realized that there's enough money here for everybody, and I really
Hmm.
want to enrich the lives of my team members. I have a small team, and there's been a couple of people that our company has made a significant difference in their lives financially, and man, that's nothing makes me feel better than that.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for that to continue on, and I want to invest that mindset into the production guy that's going to take over, so that he has that same kind of thinking down the
Hmm.
road.
Yeah. One of the things I like too about what you're saying, Rick, is the idea that, sometimes people like the general idea of business ownership, or they're okay kind of moving in that direction until it starts to become a little bit real. Sometimes they haven't even really kind of wrapped their own head around, is that something I'd even want to do? And when I had an accounting firm for 17 years, and we bought the company that we were working for, two other guys and I did. And one of them was a really good friend of mine, and he sort of convinced me we wanted this third person. And that person and I didn't always see eye to eye, and we had a few challenges, but it seemed like we could make it all work. And then my friend that was the business owner, that was one of the business owners, one of the partners that was my friend, he got into it and he just hated the idea of business ownership. Like if everything freaked him out, like the payroll coming up and we owe money now. And, we bought our company. I think we paid like over $1 million. We paid like $1.1 million for it. So all of a sudden we had this big debt, and I was like,
Yeah.
we'll make it. Like we just got to go do work. Right. And but anyhow, when he bailed, all of a sudden I found myself in a 50-50 partnership with somebody I didn't agree that much with. And it's like not really knowing how someone's going to react. So I love the idea of just even testing the waters, or getting really close, or before you get really close, just knowing if they're seriously going to get down that path.
That's a very good point. The person ended up leaving. The last conversation we had about this, they were like, "Well, what if your financial plan doesn't work out?" I said, "Exactly. That's what being an entrepreneur is, and that's the part that freaked them out the most. Is this all the unknowns?" And I feel that guy's pain. I've been doing this for 18 years, and some days I don't know if I want to do it anymore.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, it
It's
is.
hard, isn't it?
It is. It's a challenge. We've had other situations where family members with multiple kids, some are involved, some aren't, some think they kind of want to be, especially when they see some of the numbers, and it's like you want them to be motivated by the numbers, but you don't want them to do something they're not going to love just because the numbers are very enticing.
That seminar I went to talked about that a lot, and they said the main reason that second generation companies don't succeed when they're sold to family members is that that number one, that dad, that I had the passion to do this, and I was an entrepreneur, and I had the driving spirit to do it. They may not be an entrepreneur, they may not have that same drive, so they come over take it over the company. It's like a job to them, and then the thing fizzles out because of that. Because one thing I've learned is that entrepreneurs, we're not like other people,
Right.
especially when it comes to risk. And we see
Yeah.
the risk, and we see the reward. We see mostly the reward. And, there's not really any risk for us, but
Yeah.
of course
Figure it
there
out,
is.
huh?
Right.
Yeah.
But the person that's going to take over my company has been in business for himself, and he knows how hard it is. He's seen how hard I've worked. But we have, man, it's all about processes, right? Get your processes in place,
Yeah.
and that can take over and manage those processes and do it. I think it's a big help. He's been with me a long time. He's seen us have good days. He's seen us have bad years, and seen both sides of it, and seen me struggle through all of that. And so I think that he's uniquely prepared. But you want to be sure and think about, if you're going to sell to an employee or a family member, is think about what you just said. What are they, an entrepreneur at heart? Because if they're
Yeah.
not, they're going to struggle maybe
Yeah.
too much.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Absolutely. All right. So, Rick, in terms of just kind of if people are maybe in that window, maybe 6 to 10 years out. They know they've got to do something with the business. Maybe they don't have a clear successor. What are 2 or 3 things you'd most recommend for them to do at that point?
So I think number one is figure out what your personal needs are going to be, what your personal plan is. And then number 2 is start figuring out a way to get there. And you're going to have to take, you're going to take a really, really hard look at your business. First of all, are your books, are they in good shape? Because somebody else that comes in and looks at it, they're going to need to see real numbers, not a bunch of nonsense, number one. Number 2, if you're spending money freely out of your business account to buy personal stuff, stop that, because they don't want to see you having to add back in a bunch of things. Well, that was really personal expense, wasn't a business expense. So stop that. That's not how you should be running your company. And so get your books in order, your business in order, set up and formalize the processes that you have, because it may be that you're going to sell it to somebody that wants to come in and be an owner instead of working the day-to-day business, and you want to set your company up so it'll run basically without you. And as I've worked to do that, I struggled to do that for a long time. I just couldn't figure out how to hand off my responsibilities. Well, I finally have learned kind of how to do that, and I find myself now, even though we're very busy doing good volume, I'm not as crazy busy as I have been for the whole, 16 years I've been doing this before, because I finally figured out how to delegate a lot more things. So it's let me work a lot more on my business and think about this plan and work this plan than I have in the past.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Kathi, do you have anything else for Rick?
Say
Well,
again?
no, he's asking if I had anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mind is going in a lot of different directions, but I think at this point, we'll probably visit with Rick again on it, but I think at this point, that's a really good overview.
Yeah.
And a lot of businesses really, or business owners really need to go down that path. And I think they're so busy working in the business that it's difficult to take that time away and work on the business and prepare for the future. I think the majority of business owners don't do that, small businesses.
She's
So I
picking
think-
on me, Rick. She's telling me I have no foresight for my own business.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to get
Yeah.
processes
Kathy's
together.
got this really annoying habit of telling me I have to do the things that I suggest other people do. And it becomes
And I start putting these processes together. It took me a
Yeah.
long time, and this is off
Yeah,
of
no.
record, but it took me a long time to get that going too. But once I got it, it
Yeah.
does make a huge difference, and then you think that way.
One thing to be a big help for people is to get some outside help. A business coach, or
Yeah.
I was in a roundtables group for a long time, and so I had other people looking at it to correct my flawed thinking and to just help channel me in the right direction. Because sometimes we need somebody from the outside to take a look, and especially somebody that's familiar with our industry, because remodeling is not like many other things, and
Yeah.
can take a look and help you and see where your blind spots are and the things that you need to fix in your business as you get ready to sell.
Excellent. All right. Well,
Nice.
Rick, we'll leave it there for today. Thank you so much for being here. I think it was some really, really great insights. I think folks are going to really appreciate your thoughts, and hopefully we'll inspire some folks to get that process moving a little more quickly, do a little more planning. And Kathi, it's always a pleasure.
I have any sarcasm today?
Even though I
don't
give
think
you a
so.
hard time, it's always a pleasure. All right.
Thank
Doug
you guys
Howard,
for having me very much. I enjoyed it.
excellent.
Thanks, Rick.
Excellent. Well, we're glad to have you back. So, Doug Howard, Selling the Dream. We'll have another episode in next week. And we hope that as you're going down the path of working hard and trying to do all the things you have to do day in and day out, you're starting to think about, like, where does this go? What are some things I need to be doing? How can I lay the groundwork for a good succession, whatever that succession may look like? So, all right. Thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Selling the Dream podcast starring Doug Howard and Kathi Fleck. Both Doug and Kathi have built and sold successful businesses and hope this podcast will help other small business owners do the same. Tune in every week to hear more tips for increasing the value of your company so you get the highest return for your years of hard work when it comes time to sell or transition your business. Can't wait till next week? Check out our website for more information at www.growththemes.com.